Now let's talk about the problems with fiscal policy. So the biggest problem is going to be crowding out. So crowding out is where government borrowing and spending results in higher interest rates, which reduces business investment and household consumption. Um, this is kind of where fiscal and monetary policy need to be interconnected. So here we go. The government is trying to spend more money, and so they need to borrow it. Well, they have different ways they could borrow it, right? So most of the time, what they'll do is they will, be in a sense demanding more loanable funds. They will be demanding more, so therefore that would increase the interest rates, right? So this could be increasing the demand for the funds, for the financial capital. Like if we were to look at just the total amount of financial capital we are trying to demand more of it. So this could increase the interest rates just from simple supply and demand. We're demanding more financial capital. This increases the interest rates. And then how does this affect investment? Well, at a higher interest rate, you're looking at this as a business. You have to pay more money to get a loan. No, I'm going to be demanding less quantity, right? If the interest rate is too high, I'm not going to invest, right? So therefore, investment goes down, and aggregate demand is going to go down as well. And so that's where the crowding out comes in, is that we're trying to increase the aggregate demand, but we're also decreasing at the same time through the crowding out effect. So that's where fiscal and monetary policy have to be interconnected. Basically, because the interest rate's changing, we still want to do investment, so monetary policy has to kick in. So let's talk about this crowding out effect. So I like to think of crowding out working like this. So here we have the loanable funds market. So here we have R, which remember was the real interest rate. Alrighty, and then we have a demand for loanable funds. We have a supply of loanable funds. And we have a real interest rate and a quantity. And this is the quantity of loanable funds. Now, the government needs to do more spending. So what they'll do is they'll ask you, will you buy these bonds? All right, and you're going to say, yeah, sure. Let me buy them. Let me take my money out of the bank and buy the bonds, right? So basically what happens here is this could decrease the supply of loanable funds because you're using your savings. The households use savings to buy bonds. So this will decrease the supply of loanable funds. Basically, because the bank is where your supply of loanable funds is, and you take your money out of the bank, this decreases the supply. So therefore, we're going to shift it to the left. Let's call it S2. So this right here is your new equilibrium. So that's R2, Q2. Okay. So therefore, interest rates will be increasing and quantity is going to be decreasing. So interest rates are higher. Because of that, investment goes down, aggregate demand goes down. So the investment is decreasing. So the investment is crowding out the increase in government spending. So we can either look at this from a increase in the demand for financial capital, because the government is literally demanding more financial capital, or we can look at this from a loanable funds market, okay, where you are taking your savings and buying bonds. So either way we look at this, interest rates are going to be increasing. And because interest rates are increasing, this will decrease the investment. So here is the crowding out process. Okay, these are the steps. Number one is you have a recessionary gap. Number two, because you have a recessionary gap, you want to do expansionary fiscal policy, which means you're doing more government spending or a decrease in taxes. So therefore, aggregate demand will be increasing. Because you're spending more, right? So your spending is increasing. Your spending is more than your revenue. So therefore, you run a budget deficit. And how you pay for this deficit is you borrow, and you borrow by selling bonds. The loanable funds market, the supply will be decreasing because of that, right? Because we are decreasing the supply, the interest rates are going to be increasing. Because of that, investment goes down, and because of that, aggregate demand goes down. So we're trying to increase the aggregate demand, but we're also decreasing at the same time. So basically what happens here is we have a macroeconomy in a recessionary gap. And so we're trying to increase aggregate demand by doing expansionary fiscal policy. But then because of the crowding out effect, the investment is crowding out the government spending. Like the investment's like, get out of the way, right? I need to decrease aggregate demand. It's crowding it out. So therefore, we're going to be decreasing aggregate demand here. So we're not increasing it as much as we want, right? We want to be here at this GDP, but because of crowding out, we only increased a little bit. Okay? So that's the crowding out process, is that you're trying to increase GDP by 1,000, 2,000, right? But because of crowding out, you can only increase it by 500 or 800. You're not increasing it by how much you want to. So that's the issue with fiscal policy, is the crowding out effect. Another issue is timing lags, right? It takes time in order to enact fiscal policy. Okay, so basically a recession could happen. It's going to take months before we even think about doing expansionary fiscal policy, let alone actually get it passed and then even get the money out into society. So it's going to take forever. So basically, that's what the three lags are. Number one is the recognition lag. Basically, it takes time to determine that a recession has been occurred. Because remember, what is a recession? A recession is 2 consecutive quarters of contraction. So what really could happen is, like, we could have 6 months of contraction, but we have to wait those 6 months before we even figure out we're in a recession. So there is that recognition lag, and most of the time it takes time to even get the data together to say we're having a contraction. So basically what could happen is we could have a contraction and then expansion, and then we realize, oh, there was a contraction last month, right? And so, it's going to take time to even recognize if we have a recession or not. Second thing is the legislative lag, the time it takes to get the fiscal policy bill passed. This is where it takes a long time. We have to basically all, or like 2/3 have to agree on a bill. What spending do we have? Someone could say we need more spending for education. The other person could say no, we need it for environmental protection. And because they don't agree, they don't pass the bill, so they need to start over, right? So this legislative lag, in order to get everybody on the same page, takes forever. So because that takes forever, the economy is still in a recession until they figure it out. And the last thing is the implementation lag. So the time it takes for the funds relating to fiscal policy to be dispersed to the appropriate agencies to implement the programs. So, that's going to take a while. Once the government actually decides what to do, now they need to figure out, okay, where's the money go? And then from there, how quickly do those people give the money out? Okay? And then from there, how quickly do those people spend the money? Because that's where the multiplier effect kicks in. So the implementation lag, it has many steps in that, and that takes time as well. So fiscal policy, great, in the sense that, yep, we need to increase GDP, so let's increase government spending. No brainer, right? But the policy lag, the recognition lag, the legislative lag, implementation lag, all three of these right here take forever. Okay? And so basically your economy is going to be in a recession until you finally get this stuff done. Anyways, so that is the end of chapter 17. And in chapter 18, we'll talk a little bit more about this impact of the government borrowing. I'll see you there.